welcome back to the Berg podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And our guest today is Tori.
Hi, guys.
And today we're doing a little employee spotlight. Tori helps our organization with some marketing and some recruiting and some branding information. And so Tori, just give us the bio. Give us the elevator pitch. Who is Tori?
Well, I worked at Berg when I was back in high school, which feels like a really long time ago. I kind of started in like the administrative support type role, and my dad was actually working at Berg at the time, which was fun to work with him. And I started with some general admin type stuff. I worked at Berg while I was in college, so I would drive back from Westchester like 2 or 3 days a week, and then took a little break because I was living in Philly, got some more job experience. At that time, I had worked at a medical healthcare startup, so did lots of different things with building up the company, not even just with marketing, but also with basically building out an entire sales team. And then I always stayed close with Ford. So when it was time for me to spread my wings from that company, I started to reconnect. And Berg had changed a lot since I had initially started working there. So I was really excited by all of the different ways and that they had grown over the years. So Ford brought me back on now 2 years ago, not this past January, but the previous one. And a day in the life looks a lot of different ways. I feel like I think everyone who works at Berg is a little bit of a Swiss Army knife, which is kind of the fun part about the role. You get to do a lot of different things and support a lot of different aspects of the business. But one day I might be here out at the shop capturing a training that's going on and just capturing the employees while they're doing the training, and then utilizing those pictures to post on social media and whatnot. And then the next day I might be visiting all of our job sites and flying one of the 2 drones that we utilize to capture our jobs. So it looks a lot of different ways.
So let's go back for a second. Give me a timeline. So when did you leave the first time? Because I've been here for just over 10 years, and I know we missed each other.
Like just barely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know your name was in a lot of conversations as I started in the organization, but your face wasn't. Like you were not present. And so were you?
Yeah, I was here. I was here when Tori started, when you came back. Yeah, because it was, the stint with your dad, with Steve here, was short, right? You were with your dad for not long.
I might have even...
You were here a little bit with your dad, but not much in the crossover. So I think Tori got here probably, within I would say about the same time I did.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Maybe
like 2013.
Yeah, 2013, probably August of 2013, right before. Yeah. Where would you have been school-wise?
I was in a senior in high school in 2012, so it definitely would have been around that time frame.
Yeah, got it. So because I can remember your mom driving you at times, and also if we kept her too long, her mom would come get her.
Or one time, this like haunts my memories. One time I stayed out past curfew, and my mom followed me into work and walked into Ford's office and closed the door.
Mm-hmm.
And
to make sure he knew.
To make sure he knew that I was also late the night before.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Never lived that one down. Yeah. But definitely was here in my
Steve
teens.
Was not here when that happened.
No.
Just to be clear.
He would have not let that happen.
Steve would have not let that happen.
Yeah. But yeah. So
in that 2013 window, 2012, 2013 window, and then you stayed a few years, right?
Mm-hmm.
3 years, maybe 3 years.
I was working 2 jobs. I didn't have like the typical college experience. I worked 2 jobs that equaled a full-time job together, and going to Westchester. So I kind of prioritized work over maybe other things that I could have partaken in.
You didn't want your mom to come in and have to talk to you about the curfew again, right?
I just really liked what, we were like, Berg was such a small, like family oriented company in some of the same ways that we are today, but also it was just a really tight group of people, and I really enjoyed working with all of the different people that were here at that time. And I just felt like I was doing a lot of different things, even if it was just administrative type work. I felt like I was adding value, especially just because we were building a little bit at that point. Like I feel like we were starting to get on that track. So I felt like I was adding value and learning a lot of things that I didn't really have the opportunity to learn like in college. I wasn't, everyone always asks like, oh, what'd you go to school for? And I went to school for a liberal arts degree with a minor in history and art history. So I really just went to school to go to school.
For the sake of it?
Yeah, to
sure.
go to
That's
school.
Okay. Yeah.
And I felt like the skills that I was gaining outside of, the classroom were a lot more valuable here.
I mean, the schools, I think it's important to like try and find focus in college, but my dad told me this when I was in college, and I have told my sons the same thing, like, find focus, like do hard work. It's okay to like, pick up something heavy every once in a while because it makes you a human being and who you are. But the piece of paper is really what gets you your job. Yeah. It doesn't have to necessarily say the right thing. It kind of helps to open certain doors.
Like you wouldn't
depending on what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Right?
Like you wouldn't need an accounting degree in order to be a CFO.
Well, that's true. Yeah, it would be an unusual path potentially.
But it could be done if you just some hard work, some heavy lifting.
Yeah. Some would say you may not even need to know which accounting classes you took.
That's true. I mean, what difference does it make?
Yeah.
I think it shows too that you can like go the extra mile to like push yourself and show dedication to something. And hold yourself accountable. I feel like that's like the biggest difference between high school and college. It's like in high school, you kind of have your parents, you're living with them, they're holding you accountable to what you have to do. But then the shift to college is like, oh wait, I have to go to class, I have to turn in my assignments and select all the courses that'll help me get to graduation. So yeah.
You do a lot with our young folks in the organization, just as they're being onboarded or as you're capturing them, because a lot of them come through the shop and things like that. And I got to imagine like you see some of that, like that transition from being a high school student, like you're talking to having sort of real responsibilities, whether it be straight into the workforce, honing your skills, or going on to some form of higher education, trade school, college. Like those things are what in a lot of ways really shape you into being a functioning human being, being part of society. Because up until that point, most young people rely heavily, for good reason, on their parents and the structure that high school provides, and kind of just float through life for the first 17 or 18 years.
Yeah. And like there's a few kids that stick out, like Dan Solomon on the commercial division, definitely. He was with us with BCTC, but then took a short break and now he's back. And it's funny to see, like, he's an example of like someone who had to learn sometimes that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. I think we all learn that in some ways. But especially when you're young and you're just like searching for opportunity. And I think that sometimes you look at like what attracts you to a specific company, and then what they sell you, or whether it's like in person selling you, or what they capture on their website and social media, whatever it might be, like might look a certain way, but you don't really know until you go try. And I think sometimes you have to go try. You have to go take that risk and, try it out to see if it is actually a good fit for you. And you either learn that it is or isn't. And it's the learning process in that, learning whether it is something that's going to benefit you, is worth taking the risk on.
Well, and also not just the risk, but the opportunity. Like, I think we all have to be really honest about it, that at times people leave for opportunity. And the opportunity might be more money. It might be a different position. It might be more training. It could be a lot of different things. And we have had people successfully leave and come back or not. Mm-hmm. And you can't get upset as a company. We can't get upset with that. If we're fortunate enough to find good young people who are driven, and then we are either not able to provide them ample training or compensation or anything else, I really don't get mad about that. It just sort of becomes part of the process, and we have had people leave and go to the union. And then we have also had people leave and come back to the union, come back from the union, you know? So it's one of those things where it's not just as simple as taking risk or opportunity. It's a whole package of things of why people might leave. But what really becomes important, and one of the keys of Tori's job, is to try and find like the story within Berg construction, which we learned over the years. At first, it was cool pictures of equipment. Well, I guess at first it was just cool equipment.
Sure.
But it was just Ford liking equipment and being interested in it and wanting to have it and work with it. And then it became telling the story, but we thought the story was the equipment. And we learned pretty quickly the story wasn't the equipment, that you could have equipment by having equipment, but it was the use of the equipment, the movement of the equipment, the people that were running the equipment. It became all those stories. And I think there's a number of contractors that found that and realized the story was, you know what I mean, the people, was the hard work, the stress, the effort, the hard lifting, like you said. That became the story. And I think where Ford really wanted to bring Tori back was to have somebody dedicated to just that, which seems kind of crazy. Like you're sitting in the room with the two people who would have said, like, I don't know that that's a good use of our money, right? Like, in other words, not in an insulting way, but like for me, operationally driven, like, okay, I would like to hire lots of people. Every one of them needs to generate some revenue that adds back in Brian's analogy, that makes the boat go faster in the direction I want to go. From Brian's side, he has to be able to see that if I want to buy a track hoe, I can do enough work to support having bought that track hoe. So for both of us, there's a tie to the effectiveness of a hire. And it was one of those vision things with Ford where he looks at it and says, we could do a better job of telling a story. And it wasn't easy for either of us, you know what I mean, to accept that this was a reasonable position to take. And in classic Ford fashion, it really didn't matter whether we agreed or disagreed. We could have our input. In this one, he didn't give us a lot of input. Like, truthfully, I mean, I love Tori, but...
It started with our relationship with BuildWit, truthfully, though.
Right.
I mean, like... And then, truthfully, for me, that kind of set the precedence. And by the time Tori got here, 3 or 4 years later, we were already sort of accepted that the storytelling was going to be an important component of who we were for our people's sake. Outside of the four walls, you know, or outside of the, you know, the bounds that kind of keep our group together. I think it doesn't mean a whole lot to me. Like, it doesn't necessarily inspire me, or I don't get fired up when somebody sends me a message on LinkedIn and they're like, hey, you're taking some really cool pictures, or your marketing team's really putting out good content. Because I think that's cool for someone else to acknowledge it. But for me, like, some of the pieces that BuildWit for us did really well while they were still in sort of that exploratory phase of figuring out who they were going to be, was kind of highlighting the way that we wanted to tell our people's story. Mm-hmm. So I do agree. I think when we started that relationship, I was kind of like, what are we doing? I mean, we're gonna bring these guys in, and they're gonna tell us why our old logo doesn't make any sense, and they go through like why having the rounded edges of the BC makes it more appealing than the hard edges, and why this font communicates differently than this font, and I was like, man, I'm not creative enough to see it or to know it. But what they did really well was when they started creating the story of our people. Mm-hmm. That I was like, all right. That I can give.
Something, I don't know. It's like I want to be able to talk about anything we want to talk about in our history of what went on. But like one of the things that I think that we probably still have to use, and I think that I would probably at some point say to Tori, like, hey, I want to use this, is Cooper.
Sure.
Right? Like, we made this, what I think is a really good video. Yeah. We didn't.
That was our original A Day in the Life.
Right? That was our original, that's what made me think of it. That was our original Day in the Life. Yeah. And Cooper went a different direction. Yeah. And I'm happy for Coop, and I see him now and again, you know what I mean? And
we've used that a couple of times.
And we've used it a couple of times. But it was one of those things where we're trying to tell a story, and we needed to transition from that. I think what we realized, or what Ford realized, was we couldn't tell the story on the third Tuesday of October because it was the third Tuesday of October. Right. We needed to be able to tell the story when the story happened.
Every day. Yeah.
So we needed someone who was engaged and involved and doing these things. And that's really where Ford wanted to bring Tori in.
For sure. Because we tried it other ways, right? I mean, we realized 2 or 3 years into the BuildWit relationship, as they went a different direction, it just was not their forte. They came to us.
It wasn't their focus.
And they said, like, they were doing different things. They would still do some of the same things, but the availability and the cost structure was changing, and that's okay. They had to figure out who they were. And we're like, that just doesn't make sense for us, and so we're like, who can do this, right? And so we said, well, we need like a teenager. We need someone who knows how to use social media.
And we knew a couple teenagers.
And so part-time, my kid was taking pictures and posting on social media, and he did a really good job for a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid.
I think he did a really good job, period.
Great pictures.
He did a good job. I wouldn't say, because I think that we do a disservice sometimes to him when we say it's age. Because we came to realize part of it was we didn't effectively prepare him for what we wanted him to tell us.
Well, he had zero experience.
He didn't know the equipment.
He had my camera and time.
You know what I mean? So it was, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you had I would argue if you had a 16-year-old Colt Berg and he could take pictures, Colt could tell the story.
Sure.
Right? Because Colt knew what he was trying to tell the story.
Right.
But to ask somebody who's neither trained in photography nor marketing nor our business to say, hey, go find it, and we don't tell them what it is. Well, that you're going to, and the funny part was he repeatedly found it. We just sometimes we didn't find it and we said the right things, and sometimes we found it and didn't say the wrong things. And people at that point in the marketing, in the growth of social media, were so sensitive. Like, that's clearly a 63, not a 53, or that's clearly a 63, not a loader or not a wheel loader, right? Like, okay, and on my side, I was like, give the kid a break. He took a really nice picture. What do we care? But it became a thing, and so then we're sensitive to it. And so that was my only trepidation, honestly, when we said Tori would do it. I was like, we're going to be in the same boat again. Tori doesn't know. She has a little bit more knowledge because of her dad and the history, but no, I mean, it wasn't like Steve had her in a papoose carrying her around the trenches looking at it. You know what I mean? That wasn't the way it went.
Yeah, no, and I think that the transition from Aiden to Tori, I mean, significant more experience and talent in some ways. But I think the part of the transition was the human element. I mean, like,
I was just going to say that.
Aiden did a really good job of capturing moments, taking snapshots. I think,
and what we told him to.
And but he, he I think got significantly better the time he was here, but he wasn't immersed in it enough on a day-to-day basis, 8, 10, 12 hours a day to like expose the human element. And that's where I think your personality and your interaction with our folks really shines, right? Yeah. Like, our people know you because you want to know them. Not that Aiden didn't, but because you invest in their lives. Yeah, he was in high school.
Remember when
he's still in school? You're still
trying to find it. You're
still
just
does
doing
a
what your
little work
parents
for
tell
us,
you.
but
sometimes your parents tell you to get a camera and drive to a bunch of construction sites, take a picture of equipment. You do that.
Yeah. He, after school or through his co-op program.
Through his co-op program.
Exactly.
So I mean, but it's grown since then. That Tori does have more responsibilities,
way more. Yeah.
And Tori's this funny spot to me where like. And I feel this way. You and I often talk about it, that I'll make the reference to in Pulp Fiction when they're in the restaurant, in the diner, and he says about what's in the bag, and he says, my boss's dirty laundry. And he said, you do your boss's dirty laundry. And it sounds like, I'm not going to say what he says, but it doesn't sound good. And he was like, I was thinking the same thing when I said it. But like, in the nature of how we operate, you and I sort of did that for Ford for a long time. Tori did it and back in the day, right to the point.
I took his dry cleaning.
So, but I think that really felt natural to Ford, that he was going to ask her to do all these things that he wasn't sure what they were.
Sure.
But he knew what they were, but he wasn't sure how, the mechanics of it. And he just sort of said, let's go do this in a similar way that he did with you and I to say,
I think he knew what he wanted it to look like. He just didn't know how to get it there.
He just didn't know how to get it there.
Right. And so he's like, Tori, get it there.
Yeah, get it there. And that's and each of us knows that struggle of trying to figure out how to get it there. And we may or may not have the background to be able to know that, but he trusted that we would find the way, and we did. And our social media, I would argue, is as strong as it's ever been, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Eric Jumper does not take some crazy pictures.
Well, I don't think it's about the picture.
But we've learned it's not about the picture. It's about the story. And Eric was never going to know our people the way that Tori now knows our people. So her picture shows something that we wouldn't have otherwise, because she knows the people. She knows what it is, right? She knows what our culture is and who we want to be and what we're trying to show. And ultimately that becomes the story, because this podcast is not about outside people hearing it. it's great that we have however many listeners.
Right.
But we intended to reach our team, to reach our people and say like, hey, we're going to talk so that you can hear us talk because you may not see us as much as you used to. And I think in a very similar way, Tori's done that, where Tori's going to get out there and be an advocate and talk to the people and see the team and take pictures and then try and put them back to the team in newsletters and in pictures she takes and in the book that Ford puts together at the end of the year and in our social media, and do all those things in a way that it tells their story, which is really what we wanted to do, because that's the only way I think any of us solve the long-term labor problem, is if we're able to portray to the outside world what we want to be, but more importantly, portray to our team what we are great about, what we love about this work, about this team, about these people, so that they tell people.
Yeah.
And then that's how you're gonna get solid people.
All right.
There you go.
Okay, so Tori.
So Tori, what do you
Let Tori talk.
This is a Tori Hype Up podcast. I remember, obviously I started talking to Ford about coming back. And then I started looking at Berg's social media and I was like, oh man, we didn't even have social media when I first worked at the company. And then once I initially came back, not only looking at Berg's social media, but then looking at all of the companies that Berg kind of networks with and all of the different companies that are in our peer group. Just companies who are pretty much trying to find that sweet spot with telling their people's story and showcasing their projects and stuff like that. And I just never realized there was I guess it just wasn't where I was at in my life, like following all of these sick construction companies and watching them follow their people around and take cool videos of them. But it just had turned into this really cool thing, an opportunity. And then I saw the one video of Eric Jumper flying a drone underneath our excavator and then coming up the other side. And I was like, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm not going to fly a $1,000 drone underneath an excavator. Although everyone in the field says I can definitely.
Definitely think you can.
They definitely think I could get there, so I appreciate the confidence.
You were following a machine the other day.
Yeah. I'm not scared of it. I just don't know that I'm willing to risk.
It's a big risk reward, right?
Yeah.
Risk reward.
Willing to risk it. But yeah, it's just so cool to see how. Not just how Berg has embraced social media, but also how other people in our industry have as well. I mean, obviously there's so many different ways that it can benefit your business aside from showcasing and positioning yourself as an expert in X, Y, or Z. But I think too, that's what people who are in the Gen Z, X, whatever, millennials are looking at. Platforms like that to see, what's attractive about that company. And I think that being able to showcase, again, not just our work and the cool projects that we're able to be a part of, but just the people who are out there doing it every day. That's the only way that we're going to get people to maybe toss up the college degree and come work for us and do hard labor every day. And I think most importantly, I always try to capture the people who are doing it, because although I definitely get my time to go out to sites, I sit at a desk and I get to run all over the place. But at the end of the day, I have a nice, comfortable office to come back to and, put all of the things together. And then I see people who are out in the field, like Zach Moeller, who has dirt all over his face and he's covered in mud, and he does that every single day. And I mean, you have to have a huge, heart to be able to go out there and brave the elements. And I think that highlighting the people who do that is such a cool opportunity for me to get to do.
I think in a lot of ways, what we thought would be mostly marketing has turned into a communications type role.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? For
sure.
Because if you think about all of the elements that you touch, right? And some of it is probably in the marketing realm, but our websites, our social medias, you're doing newsletters, you're helping with some of communications that are going out either to our team, sometimes publicly, helping some of the leadership team with their communications that they're sending out. I mean, it's really morphed into way more communications in my mind than marketing. And I think that I don't know if you agree or not, but that kind of aligns a lot with like in its infancy where we sort of saw the message going and just like we said earlier weren't sure how to get it there. So
Yeah.
I think like when Ford brought you back, I don't think marketing was like the title that kind of fit under.
Yeah.
Because no one, like if he would have like said, I'm going to hire a communications director, we were going to be like, who are we communicating with? Like, it's just a bunch of guys sitting in a room, like, or sitting in the field. But, but I think it's probably falls a lot more under communications.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like there's been iterations of, like, obviously we worked with BuildWit, and then we had Aiden doing a lot of the different things that fell into the marketing realm, and now it looks differently. And I mean, now with all of this AI technology, who knows what stuff is going to look like in 5 to 10 years. But I think that that's kind of like the cool part about our industry is that it keeps growing and evolving. And like back in the day, like whatever, 15 years ago, no one was on social media, and
in the day, 15 years ago.
I was wondering when the day was.
I was back in my day, and like no one,
different day.
no one had websites or and I don't know. I also think about like my husband works for another contractor, and they're like. They still live. Still live in that day.
In the day.
Yeah, they're literally in that day, and it's just funny because everyone's different, and I think that's also the cool part about social media and marketing as it relates to your company. Like you get to do it your own way, and so like the way that Ford and you guys have embraced marketing and social media in the company and telling our people's story, that's our way of doing it. But like other companies, they completely focus only on the work that they do, and they only showcase their projects and not necessarily so much their people, and that's their way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the cool part too. It's like kind of like your little niche and your branding point.
You ever used I think it's literally called the Wayback Machine. Have you ever used the Wayback Machine?
I think you crawled through it, right?
Yeah.
And found like our old websites.
Found like old websites, old domains, old pictures. Yeah.
I think I remember you saying that.
It is cool because it will give you timeline. It will give you sort of like lineage of how these things all connect at times. And so it's interesting to like way before me, way before you, way before all of us to see what this originally looked like. And some of those same elements are still there, right? Still taking pictures of guys, trying to tell the story, trying to, in some ways, communicate the message that, it's more than just at that time 5 or 6 people who knew how to run backhoes or knew how to dig holes, right? And I just find it's really obviously a highly evolved message now, and a way cleaner and much more well presented message. But I think that it's always been the intent, which is interesting to see, because you like if you only look at it from the perspective of what we've done in 2 years since you've been here, or 10, 13 years since we've been here, you're only getting a glimpse or a snapshot of what that's been. And so I think it's been a consistent effort, even though the effort is significantly more visible and infinitely more polished than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I remember like one of the first projects that like Aiden and I really worked on was just celebrating our 20-year anniversary last year. And I went deep into the archives of Ford's Dropbox account. And like, I think some
just scary place.
Not floppy disks, but USBs.
And was that a 3.5 or a 5 1/4? How old are we here?
Is that a floppy disk size?
Yeah.
Wouldn't even know.
Kids, bro.
But it was, I agree. I definitely saw like, it's like, it was so obvious how the company has changed, and like going from, just doing septic tanks to doing these huge landfill jobs. You could clearly see how much we had grown, even just capacity wise. But I think there was this like underlying, like sense of self through all of the old pictures that I was finding. It felt like it was still us, but it's just like we grew up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
A little bit. Some of us.
A little bit.
Some of us.
A little
Some of us may not have.
We all grew up, but
We got old.
Yeah.
I got old. I'll go that far.
Yeah, fair. So, no, cool. I think that's a great snapshot into your path here at Berg, where it started, where it's going, maybe. And it's probably a good place to wrap it up. So, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah,
Really
thanks
appreciate
for
your time.
having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming today, folks. We hope you got something from this episode, and we hope you come back for another one.